Hello there. Hello there.
At last, where have you been?
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
This is where the fun begins.
Hello, everyone.
Please, not already. Let the
Hello,
joke die
everyone,
3 episodes
and
ago.
welcome to Jedi Eternal. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew, and alongside my jerk of a co-host who sleeps in his floor because he bought a 70-inch TV and doesn't have money for anything else.
No, I'm fiscally responsible. You don't
His
know
home
me.
consists of a 70-inch TV and a 12 case of Mountain Dews.
It's actually Dr. Pepper.
And a 3-ounce bag of beef jerky. And Braxton Taylor.
You don't know me. You don't know what I am.
Oh, welcome back, everyone, to Jedi Eternal. We hope you have had a blessed week.
2 weeks, actually.
2 weeks. So, funny story about that. Let's just get this out of the way.
Might as well.
Last week, we actually did get together for our podcast,
Yeah.
and we watched the Bad Batch episode 6, right?
Yeah.
And we watched it, and we were getting ready to start, and we came to this conclusion that we hated the episode. There wasn't a whole lot of news, and we just were not feeling it.
Yeah.
And we came to the conclusion, why force ourselves to do an episode when we just weren't feeling it? We didn't feel like there was enough to really bring to you guys. So we had this brilliant idea
Wonderful
to use my trash computer to start a Let's Play of Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh, yeah.
And we tried streaming that on Twitch. It took us forever to try to get everything to work properly.
Yeah.
We started streaming, and my computer would just not run this extremely old game.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So, all that being said, it was a complete
It was a bit of
failure
It
and
was a
waste of
failure,
time.
yeah.
But we it gave us the push to go ahead and purchase a webcam
Oh, yes.
that we have not tried using yet, but we're going to soon.
Right.
We purchased this webcam to start doing some Let's Plays directly from our Xbox.
Yeesh.
And we're hoping that we'll get some better performance out of that. Hopefully we can get everything to work the proper way and do some Let's Plays for you guys very, very soon. And the main reason we can do that is because you guys donated to us.
Yes.
And that's what's really cool about this is
Yes.
this is the first
purchase
that we purchased because of your guys' donations. All
Yes.
because you guys chose to donate to us. That is why we own this webcam now.
Yes.
And that's really cool. And so thank you to everyone. We hope that it ends up being worth the money you invested in us.
Absolutely.
But please don't think that is all we need.
The train does not stop here.
It does not stop here. There is still much more that we would like to purchase and need to purchase if we want to continue to further this podcast and further this brand in general, right?
Right, yeah.
We have a lot more that we want to do, a lot more that we want to bring you guys. And so, with that being said, please go check out our GoFundMe. If you haven't yet, we would love for you to donate there. Every little bit helps. And we hope that this purchase of the webcam shows that we are putting that money to good use.
Yeah.
And so with whatever you provide for us next, we promise it'll be worth the money you give towards us. So.
Yeah, we just want to take some time and just say thank you for that because, like I said, we kind of were just thinking about that earlier. Just like, wow, we got the webcam, didn't really think about it. And like, oh wow, we just purchased this with the money that we got solely from donations, you know. And again, so that was awesome. And as Drew already said, just want to reiterate from my end, thank you so much for all that. And we, like I said, we hope to start pushing out some content that's maybe different from our podcast that we hope that you all would really enjoy, which is, of course, the gaming aspect of it and things of that nature. And it doesn't even have to be necessarily gaming. If we ever wanted to do podcast videos, like where you can see us as we do the podcast, you know, we have, partially that capability now as well. So thank you very much. If you want to support us, continue to do so because we can just only get growing more from here. So, anyway, Drew.
Yeah, lots of dreams and things we want to bring. So continue to support us. And
Make
we
our
thank
dreams
you
come true.
very much. Yes, please. Please make them come true. We often sit at home and cry. So,
Yeah, most of the time, actually.
Most of the time, especially Braxton. But
Yeah, well, we're not
you
gonna
know,
talk
I
about
mean,
that. Move on. I told you not to talk about that. That's confidential.
please give us donations so Braxton can purchase a couch for his.
Stop crying. So I can just stop crying, frankly. That's all. Money makes me not cry anymore.
Anyways,
moving on.
Moving along, let's start with our first news story of the day. And this is an exciting one. This is something that we've been talking about, debating about. What is the Book of Boba Fett? What is the Book of Boba Fett going to be? What is the story it's going to tell? And we're starting to get somewhat of a picture of what the series is going to be. Tamira Morrison was interviewed on Rotten Tomatoes, and they asked him about the Book of Boba Fett, and this is what he had to say. Well, we can't say too much, but we're going to see his past and where he's been since The Empire Strikes Back. Somebody pointed out he's been kind of stuck in this one place, and now's the time to actually go back in time and check out his journey and find out more about him. And then, of course, after having a good meeting with these guys and they outlined a few things, it was just wonderful. Again, it was nice to work with these people, and it was just a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So, the big thing to take from this is it sounds to me like we're going to most likely either have some episodes that focus directly on what has gone on in earlier stages of Boba Fett's life, or we're going to have flashbacks. I do not think that this series is going to be purely focused on the past, because I do think that in some ways this is going to continue to move the story of what the Mandalorian has been telling forward in some sense, right? As we head towards this grand finale that they're working on.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be running in tandem. I think that most likely the story is going to be progressing along, and then as events happen, it's going to send him back thinking about something, maybe like, I don't know, right? I don't know. I obviously have no clue what the context is going to be, but maybe as he sits on the throne, he gets maybe a little, like, not sentimental, but like he remembers, hey, I was on the other side of this where I was looking at the person on the throne, and he flashes back to a time when he was in, Jabba's palace. I don't know, just stuff like that, right?
And it's interesting that he says after Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
As I would think, you would be telling from Return of the Jedi. So it's interesting that he says that, because if he truly knows what he's talking about, and you would assume he does, unless he just mistakenly said the wrong movie.
Right.
That means we might actually get some kind of story about him before he falls in the Sarlacc pit as well.
Right, and that's what it's sounding like, because you think, like, man, in my mind, I'm definitely not against that. I think that would be awesome to see, but in my mind, I'm like, man, why wouldn't they have started off, like, when he falls into the Sarlacc pit, and then, him trying to get out? Like, everybody wants to know that part of the story. Maybe that's kind of the climactic end of the flashbacks. I don't know, but again, that time period of right after Empire Strikes Back is kind of an odd time. I'm saying, like, why wouldn't they go back further than that?
You also have to assume if they do this and they do go back to that time, like, Tamir Morrison can't play Boba Fett, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, so they're gonna have to have somebody else play him.
Yeah.
Because he is not that size. Like,
unless
they really like. If you look back at Boba Fett in Return of the Jedi, he's pretty, like, skinny dude. And
and here's the thing. Back in the day, I guarantee, like, more often than not, he kept his helmet on, and they could just play around that with, like, him voicing it, but then someone just being in the costume, like as we see in Mandalorian with Mando.
Yeah,
right?
You have to assume that's probably the direction they're gonna go.
But
and they actually added Tamir Morrison's voice to Boba Fett, right, in Return of the Jedi.
Yes, I believe so. I can't remember off the. Yeah, I think so. Like one of those like
the
re-release editions.
Like in the special editions and stuff. I think they did.
I think so too.
Voiceovers where they added his voice to it. So they could do that, but The other thing interesting here to note is that it does mention, he mentions as well in the interview that Robert Rodriguez is coming back as director for some of the Boba Fett series.
Director.
Which I think is great.
He did a lot of good
because-
work in Mando.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
Some of my favorite episodes from The Mandalorian are the ones he directed. And
which
so-
was we made some we poked some good fun with him because he directed Spy Kids, right? That was one of the things he directed was Spy Kids, and we're like, oh boy, here what on earth are we about to see? And then turned out like those were the like you said best episodes of The Mandalorian. Like, oh wow, okay, came a long way since Spy Kids 3.
Shark Boy
you know?
and Lava Girl,
Exactly. Those were key moments and pivotal in his
I had a
filmmaking
ridiculous
careers.
crush on Lava Girl. I'm just saying.
I thought he was gonna say
So.
Shark Boy. Anyway, so but the point is that we we were just thinking this is going to be crazy, but ends up being great. So long story short, I guarantee you that he's going to continue on with this role, so to speak. This wave, and he's going to do good. And I'm excited. So I'm excited to see what happens in the Boba Fett show for sure. So
For sure.
all right, so moving on to our second news piece, Ming-Na Wen. And she plays Fennec Shand. She basically shares a photo celebrating the wrapping up of production on the Book of Boba Fett. Just kind of carrying on with that theme of news piece here. So basically, they have wrapped up production on Book of Boba Fett, and like I said, she posted a photo celebrating that, which is pretty cool. So, Drew, do you have any more on that for us?
Yeah, I do actually. So she posted a picture, and she's got like a bunch of boxes with what appears to be kind of like a lot of times shows will have like a gift at the end, after they're done with some kind of like season art or something, right, to kind of remember it by. And this one shows like her helmet that she wears, and it says the Book of Boba Fett, and it shows on there again season 1. So it appears that they are done, and again, just another confirmation. Actually, the biggest confirmation we have that they are calling this season 1. Because we had rumors about this being season 1.
Yeah, as of last episode. Yeah,
but this is an actual confirmation, and the fact that, in my opinion, the fact that they are saying season 1 on this does mean that they intend for this to be more than one season, which is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I said this last episode that we were talking about. It's like, but why indicate season 1 if there's not more than one season? You know what I'm saying?
Right. I don't think they would.
I agree. And that does kind of. I'm not, again, as I said last episode, it's not a bad thing. I want more of Boba Fett than not. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what I'm trying to say. Point is that I would love to see season 2, season 3, whatever. I just hope that they know when to stop. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't want this to drag on. Because the longer this drags on, pushes back the event series further. And it has a whole myriad of things.
And we'll get to some of that as well.
Yeah.
That exact statement there kind of plays into some stuff we're heading towards in our stories today. Actually, in our rumors.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's jump forward here. And this is for you gamers out there. This is
gamer
good news.
alert
for you gamers out there.
Gamer moment.
Jedi Fallen Order has released their next gen update. At least as far as we can tell. I have not confirmed on the Microsoft store or anything for myself.
Right.
But the rumor out there is that they announced it and possibly already released it, but again, I'm not 100% sure on that.
I was reading a article today, may have been from Games Radar, I can't remember, but it kind of popped on my phone, I just looked at it. But yeah, long story short, they basically said that the kind of updated next-gen successor to Jedi Fallen Order is, according to them, it is released today. Now, they did say something weird, like if you've already purchased it on Xbox One or PS4, that you have to get a hold of Electronic Arts or EA, and they'll do, I don't know, they never explained how you do it very well.
Yeah, so this is it's a free cross-generation upgrade. But if you are buying it for the first time, they're selling it for $40. This next gen update brings higher resolution textures and assets 4K HDR resolution, improved 60 frames per second performance, and significantly faster loading times.
Which is all good. Yeah,
it's all
but-
great. It's what you would expect.
Right.
I mean, kind of with the current next gen, like upgrades that games have done.
Yeah.
It's usually about faster loading times, higher resolutions, and 60 frames per second. That's kind of like the standard for next gen games.
So they're not
at this
going
point.
above and beyond.
No.
And here's what I would say as well is that, as much as I love the game, this is just me, and some people may completely disagree, but I don't know. For me personally, there wasn't a lot of replayability value for it. Once I beat it, I kind of beat it. Yeah, it was fun to go back through and play some of the levels again after not playing it for like a month or two or whatever. But I don't know that this was going to drive me to re-download it again and play like, oh, okay, it's a little bit faster. Or maybe it looks a hair sharper. It's like, what? It's exactly the same thing as I'd already done.
Yeah.
I just wish that when they had released this news that they said, also, here's a little piece of DLC or something like that. You know what I'm saying? To bring people back in.
Sure. That would have been cool, right? If they would have like, hey, here's a little DLC that is like a little adventure they go on in between this game and whatever's next,
Right,
like
exactly.
something to kind of hold you guys over. But I think they're fully focused on making the sequel to this, and they just don't have time to make something like that. I truly believe they are preparing a sequel that we'll probably hear about sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
We actually are like at the beginning of E3 right now. E3 is through this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So some big stuff. We'll be hearing some big stuff over the weekend as far as video game releases go.
Yeah.
And so there is a chance we're going to be hearing some Star Wars news come out of that.
Yeah, very
And
possible.
if that is the case, of course, next Saturday we'll talk about that for sure.
Which we did, and then just kind of like before we moved on, this is just pure speculation on my point, but we have had a lot of rumors in the past about the Zynga game that is being worked on. There's other smaller projects and stuff.
Well, we actually got the reveal title of the Zynga game.
Well, I'm just saying, we might be seeing some more things come to full fruition as E3 turns around. So
yeah, definitely.
You never know. All right. Actually, yeah, you lead into rumors. So Drew, lead us off here.
Yeah, so we're going to jump into our rumors. And the first rumor that we have here today is talking about Andor, which is supposedly
crazy anonymous amalgamous game.
Well, like, so
show, should I say?
it's interesting because, again, like, Andor's been talked about forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's been what feels like production forever, and like somehow we're still not like seeing anything about this. We still don't
Right.
like know when it's coming.
Like this
It's
was
all
the
very
first show
weird.
that was ever announced,
Yeah.
like ever, and then we're getting stuff that was announced much later. Like we know a date that is coming out. Anyway, so it is very funny.
It's very strange to me, but it's reportedly going to have Saw Gerrera back and director Krennic.
Director Krennic.
These don't surprise me at all.
No, it fits right in the timeline for sure.
Yeah, it fits perfectly with kind of what we're expecting. It would make sense that Saw Gerrera could make some appearances, being the rebel fighter that he is at the time. And it makes sense that Director Krennic could be involved in this as well. As, again, he was very active during this period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, this is somewhat of a prequel to what we see in the movie, right? So, yeah, that lines up. I honestly, I don't really know that there's much more to say about it than
Not
like
really.
I mean,
It's
cool.
a rumor right now,
There's
but
nothing. I mean, I'm okay with them being back.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rumor, but it's very, very plausible. So, all right, so let's move on. Our second rumor for the week is actually something we kind of discussed a little bit in the past. I think this is a while back, but unfortunately, it's reared its ugly head to be reiterated again, and that is Liam Neeson claims that he has not been approached for, to reprise his role as Qui-Gon in the Kenobi show. So. This is something we've talked about in the past, and we kind of discussed this before too. But it's like, if he was, why would he say that? But anyway, I'm not gonna. We can talk about more. But Drew, if you haven't seen anything on
Yeah.
that.
So it was in an interview with Jimmy Kimmel. They asked Liam if he was going to be in the upcoming Obi-Wan series. And this is what he said. He said, "Yes, I heard Ewan McGregor was going to do a series. No, I don't think so. No, I haven't been approached."
Liar. Okay. I'm hoping he's a
So
liar.
there's two things here. Either one, he's being a total liar. As we know, Obi-Wan had to do. Because, as we've said, and we'll continue to say this, Qui-Gon being in this show has to be kept a secret.
Yeah, of course.
You cannot spoil this in a trailer.
Yeah.
You cannot reveal this ahead of time. For this to be the truly great moment that I think it deserves to be, it has to be kept secret, and you have to experience it in the moment. Right?
Right, exactly.
And so, yeah. There's no way Liam Neeson's gonna just be like, "Yeah, I'm in Kenobi." There's no way.
Yeah, I mean, why would, like I said,
Yeah,
why would they say that?
Yeah,
You know
like
what
he
I'm saying?
can't do that. So that's one way to look at this.
So, moral of the story, he's either telling the truth or he's not.
But
Yeah.
if he is telling the truth, what in the world
Are they thinking?
are they thinking?
Well, I
Like,
mean-
what in the world?
In my opinion, Qui-Gon being in the Kenobi show, especially in the timeline that it is, he's an integral character.
Yes.
Not only was his Obi-Wan's master, and we know that we're getting flashbacks, so he should be in the flashbacks, A, but B, we know from canon lore that he was being trained by the Force Ghost of Qui-Gon in the Tatooine deserts.
Yeah, so I think I don't know that we'll see Qui-Gon in flashbacks. I think if we get flashbacks, it's gonna be Clone Wars.
Right.
which
But I'm just
will-
saying, like, theoretically speaking.
Well, sure.
you know
I mean,
what I'm
like, yeah. I mean, I guess there's nothing stopping them from even going farther back. But I think the perfect opportunity for you to have Qui-Gon in the show is during this time of Obi-Wan being on Tatooine.
Yeah.
Honestly, I envision it probably in the first episode.
Exactly.
You know, he's on
yeah.
Tatooine, and you see him sitting in his hut or whatever, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it pans over and there's Qui-Gon, and he's standing
Yeah.
there, and they're doing their training or whatever, and
theoretically,
and-
that could be a flashback of the first times that he was in the Tatooine
Well,
deserts.
it could
you know
too,
what I'm saying?
yeah. And it's like that's the kind of thing I want to see in the show. It
Yeah.
makes total sense, and if they have not even asked him to be in this, I would be very, very concerned for
Yeah.
what this show ends up being.
Yeah.
Because that is something you cannot miss in this.
And if that's something that they miss, what else have they missed on?
exactly,
You know what
if
I'm
they
saying?
miss that, then I don't believe that they'll capture the heart of what this needs to be.
I completely agree.
So, yeah, only time will tell.
Yeah,
as
I
we
guess-
always say.
As only time will tell. So I guess we shall see what happens.
So,
Unfortunately.
moving on to our last rumor for the week. And we're going to continue with the Kenobi series here. But also this kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier in our news. And basically what we're starting to hear is that the Kenobi series is reportedly impacting the Mandalorian Season 3 production.
Interesting.
So what they're saying is that, well, actually two things. Number one, Kenobi is kind of taking a precedent right now. It's they're using a lot of the same stages and technology that we know the Mandalorian uses. We know that they're kind of sharing that.
Right.
And so right now they're focusing on getting Kenobi done.
Right.
So we normally would have already had the Mandalorian like probably finished by now, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But instead, they've not even started production. So here's the good news and the bad news. The good news is we're getting Kenobi.
Right. As much as I love Mandalorian, if Kenobi somehow comes out faster because of this, so be it.
Yeah, so be it, right? I mean, yeah, take their time with it. Let's get this right.
Yeah.
And then we can go back to the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But if looking at a little more towards the negative side, it's looking like we will not get the Mandalorian Season 3 until December 2022.
Boo.
That seems to probably be the case because at this rate, they're thinking they may not even start on production for Mandalorian Season 3 until the beginning of 2022.
Which is wild, man. I mean, and like, man, there's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is you know, impacting it a little bit. Like, well, this is a little bit more than a little bit, if that's the case. You know what I'm saying?
And if we look at our timeline here, we know we're getting the Book of Boba Fett in the fall. Or in the winter.
Yeah, like I think December.
I think it's supposed to be like
was what
December,
it's alluded
right?
to at least. Yeah.
So like actually, I guess almost more at the beginning of next year probably is where it'll be by the time it ends. I wonder, do we get Andor before we get season 3 of Mandalorian?
Well, I mean, I would have to say to some degree, just in my logical mind, yes, because Andor was the first thing that we ever heard about, and now we're going our 3rd season of Mandalorian, you know? So
yeah, there's a lot of.
I mean, I would have to say that. I mean, you'd think after all the stuff that's been talked about recently that Andor would come out before season 3 of Mandalorian, but we'll see.
Well, the way I look at it is, I think that right now they're keeping this storyline of what the Mandalorian has started in that slot of the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, we have Kenobi and we have Andor. Logically, in my mind, those must be more towards like the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
you think so.
And what I mean by that is like, so we have like a December release for the Book of Boba Fett. Do you think we could get another Star Wars series in like March or April of 2022?
Well, I thought that's the slot for Mandalorian season 3. That's where I thought it was going.
Well, that's
initially.
what we originally thought, yeah. But now it's not looking like that at all.
But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see something more like April, May. And potentially that be Andor, but yeah, I could definitely see something coming out April, May for sure. Well, because we got April, May whenever, Bad Batch came out. You know, now granted, nothing came out in December, I suppose, but
well, we know they're saying that Andor will release in 2022, right? But they've not given us an idea of when in 2022. But you have to assume they're not going to want to do that in the same time slot as what we've come to expect the Mandalorian and, you know, that to appear in. So unless they start doubling up on Star Wars series in the same quarter, but I just find that...
I find it hard to believe.
Yeah, I find
but
it hard
at the
to
same
believe.
time, though, with as many shows that they have announced, you know, at some point you feel like that almost has to happen for it to be a realistic time schedule to be released, rather unless they just want to wait, you know, 2 years for another season of a show to come out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, which obviously this seems like almost what they're about to do with Mandalorian, but you see what I'm saying? I do find it hard to believe in the double stack because I think it would take away from one of their other productions that they spent so much time and money on. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's interesting because right now we have Kenobi and Andor expected to be released in 2022. And I find that hard to believe.
Right.
And now they're saying The Mandalorian in 2022.
Right.
The end of 2022. And what about
excuse me,
Ahsoka?
Yeah, I was under the presumption that was like in 2023. I'll try to look it up real quick. Well, this article here says our guess is that Ahsoka will follow on the heels of Book of Boba Fett in April of 2022. So that's interesting. I didn't think that was, you know, slated to come out that early, which obviously that's just a random article. It's not anybody, you know what I'm saying. But it is interesting, of course, that they would think that would come out so soon. Because they're thinking it would come out right after Book of Boba Fett. which, depending on how they set up the story, that could make sense, right? It could make sense that they're trying to kind of put those same storylines together. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what we said a second ago. But
I just think if we have to look at the logical timeline here of productions, and we know that Andor started late last year, and we've had updates since then, even up into April of them still doing production. So like they've been in production for a while. So that has to either be close or already done. We know that the Book of Boba Fett is apparently also very close or almost done. So in my eyes, those have to be the next two, right? And we know the Book of Boba Fett is coming in December. So logically, Andor will be the next thing we get, right?
yeah, I'm looking at this another article here, but it says they're talking about the Ahsoka series. But they say, first, the 12-episode Cassian Andor series is due to air in 2022, suggesting that there could be a long wait before any footage of Ahsoka swings the lightsaber into our lives. Blah, blah, blah. So
I think we don't get Ahsoka till 2023.
See, and again, a lot of people are saying 2022, but I was already under the presumption that it was 2023. But
Well, you just have to think Kenobi is being worked on, so we're going to get Kenobi before that. We assume we're getting Mandalorian Season 3 before Ahsoka.
yes.
So, in my mind, that pushes Ahsoka back to most likely 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so.
And we're not getting Rangers of the New Republic, at least not anytime soon.
Which but again, that kind of frees up a slot though for a team to work
Exactly.
in, so that could change a few things up too.
Yeah. I don't know.
There's so many variables,
I wish they would update us a little more on this stuff, but
I agree. We could talk about this all day.
Yeah,
so.
well, we already have. We've
We
already been talking
have-
about it for a while.
Oh, okay, good.
Let's go ahead and move on. Actually, there's one last thing I do want to mention about that.
Uh-oh.
That's kind of holding another reason why The Mandalorian Season 3 is probably being put on hold a little bit, and that's because Pedro Pascal has been cast as Joel for The Last of Us HBO series.
And we talked about how his contract stated that took precedence. So
Yeah. So that's going to keep him busy for a while. And you have to think, going to keep him busy for most likely at least a couple of seasons of The Last of Us.
sure.
And so now they're going to have to work with that.
Well, here's the thing, real quick. Our rumor was the Kenobi series reportedly impacting Mandalorian Season 3. Well, what if they're like, well, if we know for a fact that Pascal can't come because he's being taken up precedence on another show, let's go ahead and push Kenobi into production. And they're saying, oh, Kenobi's going to impact Mandalorian. Well, not really. They're just replacing that for now because they can. You know what I'm saying?
And that may very well be what has been decided there. We don't know what the talks have been, what their plans are, but like we do know that the Book of Boba Fett clearly has been a plan for a good while.
Right.
I mean, just the fact that they're already like almost finished with it tells me they've had this plan to do this show since probably right around when The Mandalorian first started, right? Like
I'm
first,
sure.
I mean, they already had to have kind of had some kind of an idea of what they were going to do with this. So,
Right.
and that would have been long before there was any casting of Joel, I would assume.
Right.
So-
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's hard to say.
It's hard to say,
right
but
now.
good Star Wars stuff on the way.
Yeah,
right?
a lot
And
of
that's
really cool
what-
stuff
That's what
coming out.
matters more than anything.
Yeah.
Let's jump into our releases for this week. We have some good stuff on the way. Let me pull that back up for you guys.
Come on now.
Come on now. Come on, girl.
Get your head
That's
in the game.
that's a Red Dead 2.
Oh, come
thing
on,
for you. Come
girl.
on, girl.
You're right, boy.
Arthur Morgan. Good
Arthur
stuff.
Morgan.
June 15th. We are going to finally get those Legends books. They're kind of with their new designs. They're calling that the Essential Legends Collection. We're getting Heir to the Empire, Path of Destruction, and Shatterpoint. All three of those come out June 15th. I am, of course, probably going to buy them. They look pretty cool, and it'd just be nice to have them. And I still think there is reason behind this. I
Right.
think there is a reason they chose these 3 books, and we just are going to have to wait to find out. But I really do think this is not a coincidence. I think
Yes.
there is purpose behind these choices. So be thinking about that.
We're not going to dive too far into that, but we have spoke about that before on a previous podcast
Yeah.
and how a lot of these legend stuff has been cropping up recently, and why the resurgence of all this legend stuff?
Yeah.
Guess we'll find out.
So definitely, if you choose to pick these up, there may be more significance to those Legends books than meets the eye.
More than meets the eye.
Moving on past that, we're getting our next issue of Star Wars, which is currently in the War of the Bounty Hunters.
Mm-hmm.
Some huge stuff dropped in the last issue of War of the Bounty Hunters, which was technically issue number 1 of War of the Bounty Hunters.
Yes.
And I'm going to go ahead and say spoiler alert here, but I do want to talk about it for just a second. So spoiler alert. So if you don't want to hear it, this is your moment. But at the end of the comic, we find out that Kira is there. Kira has shown up as the leader of the Crimson Dawn, the newly revived Crimson Dawn. So I guess they had been kind of out of the picture, but they're back,
Right.
and she's claiming to be the leader of them.
Right.
And
Because we got to think of the timeline there a little bit, right? Because we see, obviously, Malt was leader of the Crimson Dawn during the time of Solo, the movie. But now this is after Empire Strikes Back. So there's quite a bit of a gap
well,
there.
and we know sometime after Solo, but before Rebels, which was right before New Hope, Maul's on half crazy again on a
kind of crazy
some
binger.
old Sith temple, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
some stuff went down.
Yeah.
Most likely, I think Kira booted him some way, somehow.
Yeah, definitely could be. But
anyway, so Kira is back in Star Wars. I think this is going to be very, very interesting to see how this plays out. Maybe we'll hear a little more about how she came to be where she is right now as the leader of the Crimson Dawn. Who knows? Maybe we'll get some flashbacks.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is she has taken Han Solo's body.
Wow.
So Han Solo in Carbonite during this time, she steals Han Solo in Carbonite from Boba Fett.
That's a pretty crazy development there.
And then what's even better is, so Boba Fett was on his way to take Han Solo to Jabba, and when he loses Han Solo, Jabba puts a bounty on Boba Fett's head. And so everyone now is actually trying to kill Boba Fett.
So it's like John Wick, a galaxy far, far away.
So, of course, as we all know, Boba Fett, in the end, he does deliver Han Solo, and no one can defeat Boba Fett. But it's still a fun adventure to see it play out and see how this goes down. Will Kira survive this? Will Kira survive? Will we see more interaction between Han and Kira after this?
Right.
I mean, there is potential for that. And something to think about. We know Han Solo, not long after Return of the Jedi, kind of goes off on his own again and leaves behind Leia. And could Kira possibly have something to do with maybe some of the reasons why that happens? I mean, there's a lot of things that could play into that.
Yeah.
The thing that might be concerning to some with this story is if we're getting this story, especially if we start getting flashbacks, we may not. You might want to say goodbye to your Solo 2 chances.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying that just yet because it's not shown anything or not told us anything. But if it starts to dive into some of that, you might kiss those goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, then that whole story's going to be told up, and it's like, what's the point of reprising that?
Not that they
in the film,
could necessarily still do it, but it's going to start saying hey, we've decided we're just
unless they hint at it and then it's trying to set up for the movie.
Right. Well, if it's only hints, then yeah. But good stuff there. Again, as I always say, and I will continue to say this, the Star Wars comics are where it is at. And out of everything in Star Wars right now, in between novels, current Bad Batch series and video games, comics, whatever it may be. The comics is where it is at. It's where we're getting the most intense stories and where we're getting honestly the most impactful stories in the Star Wars universe is coming from the comics. So if you're wanting to know the most important lore, Star Wars comics is where it's at.
It's where it's at, baby. Yeah, so...
And of course, we have the next Bad Batch episode next Friday. That's the only other thing to throw in there.
All right, so now that we have discussed all of our goodies for the week, we are going to go ahead and proceed into our Q&A segment. Of course, as you all know... Excuse me. As of course, if you all know, we'd like to ask each and every one of you to ask us questions, to ask us, what kind of topics you would like us to talk about, all that good stuff. So we typically try to do 3 a week, and if there's any more, we put it into a queue. So most of our questions this week are from our queue, so we're going to use 4 this week to kind of catch up a little bit. And just to make sure nobody's feeling a little left out there. So our first question of the week comes from the JB himself, who says, if the opportunity came up, would you be in a Star Wars film? If so, what would you guys like to star as? But a curveball. If you choose a Jedi or Sith, and let's face it, we all want to be a Jedi, you have to choose something else. So, for me, and I have to admit, I was looking over the questions we're going to do today. And folks, I'm sorry. I feel like some of my answers for these questions today are going to be a little bit of cop-out, a little bit of cop-out-ish. So I apologize. But this is my sincere truth answers. So I apologize if they're not exactly what you want to hear. So, JB, so you ask if would I want to be in a... Oh, gosh. Oh, my Lord, the hellhounds are coming out if you can hear them. I'm sure you can.
Of course.
Anyway, so... you ask, first question is, would you want to be in a Star Wars movie? And the answer for that is kind of tied to the second question, which is, who would you want to be? Yes and no. I think for me, I think I would love to jump on it just for the fact is, hey, I'm going to be a part of the Star Wars universe. I think that'd be so cool. But a part of why I love Star Wars so much is the fact that it's a galaxy far, far away. And if I see myself in it, it kind of grounds it to reality. And so sometimes I don't know if I'd even want to be in it just because I'm afraid it might take some of the magic away. And I don't know that would be the case, but hey, if they called me up tomorrow and give me a role, I would do it. Don't get me wrong. But you see what I'm saying.
I see what you're saying.
So the second part of that question is, who would you want to be? So to kind of fulfill that, how do I say that? The first part of my answer, if I were to be in a Star Wars film, I would not want to be a main character. And for the exact reason what I already said. I would love to be a side character. Someone in the market, in the background, like a extra. I would not want to be a main character for that sole reason. I would love to be a part of the Star Wars universe, know that, hey, maybe I'm super minor, be just major enough that I have a name in the Star Wars universe, but I don't really speak or anything. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so that, I'm in Star Wars universe, but I'm still not a part of it to where it loses its magic for me. So that's a cop-out answer, I know, but that's from my heart. So Drew, A, would you want to be in a Star Wars film? And B, if so, what would you want to be character-wise other than a Jedi and Sith?
So I completely understand where you're coming from, and I get that completely. I tend to think about it a little differently. I would absolutely do it. And honestly, I think in a sense, I would get even more into the magic of it.
Yeah.
And part of that is I like acting. Now, I've done very small stage acting.
Yeah, I think both of us have love that kind of goofy acting stuff.
And so I enjoy those things, and I can really get into it sometimes and get into the character. And so to be in Star Wars and be able to experience that, I think could be really, really cool. Mm-hmm. And now would I want to be a part of every Star Wars? Would I want to? This is how I look at it. Being a part of a movie or a series of movies would be cool, but working for Star Wars, being in the story room,
in the background stuff,
that I would actually hate.
Yeah.
Now, it would be a cool job, sure, but I would hate it because I would always know what's happening next in Star Wars. Right. And
Right.
like it would the magic would officially be gone because
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
you are
Yeah.
creating what happens next instead of getting
Right.
to experience it, if
Right.
that makes sense. But as far as like being in a role for a Star Wars movie, yeah, I would absolutely do it. And I think what I envision a role now, of course, yeah, I want to be a Jedi or a Sith, either
Right,
one. Like,
right.
of course, that's what I want to be. But if I had to be something different, I think what I would be, I think, and I've thought about this before, is like I would want to be probably somewhat force sensitive. He didn't say I couldn't be force sensitive, right?
Right.
Probably someone that like idolizes Jedi, or
I would be
So-
part of the Force of the Wills or the Church of the Wills. or
So yeah,
whatever.
maybe something like that. That you don't really have the knowledge or experience to become a Jedi, but you're someone that does highly respect and idolize that, and like maybe it'd be set during a period where the Jedi were gone, something like that, or maybe it's before the actual Jedi happened.
Right.
Something like that, where you're still almost like a knight or a warrior in a
Right.
sense.
Yeah. So like basically perfect. Like from wow, let me just blank.
Basically, like what?
Rogue One. Chirrut.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, the Guardian of the Will.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think I would love to be a character like that. I see exactly what you're talking about. I think that would
Like
be
you
awesome.
still believe in the Force, very mystical.
Mhm.
I would like to see more of like a knight role, like a King Arthur type character.
Naturally.
Yeah. Like, but not necessarily a Jedi.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, now that you say that, I do see where you're coming from. I kind of see it from a different perspective as well. I still kind of stand on where I'm at. I definitely would not want to be a main character. But yeah, now that you say that, like, if I were to be a part of I read the script, I studied it, and I'm just wrapping my brain and my life around this role, I do feel like, yeah, you might actually start to kind of feel more into the Star Wars and see yourself. It's like, hey, that's me, and that is the Star Wars universe. It's like, yeah, I see where you're coming from. I still stand pretty firm on my opinion about not being a main character for the reason I said, but I could definitely
I've
see being
always thought this is just like a story pitch I've always had that I think would be really cool, and it's kind of where this comes from. I always thought it would be cool to show the beginning of the Jedi as a one man who kind of truly discovers the Force, like the light side of the Force, and starts to learn these things. And he like does kind of like a Moses, and like
Yeah.
saves like a group of people who are under some kind of oppression, and uses those abilities, and then like in the end gives his life to save those people. And like what he does and maybe wears and like the weapon he creates
becomes the
becomes the
standard.
standard,
Yeah.
and then creates the Jedi. You
That
know
would
what I
be cool.
mean?
Yeah, that'd
and
be
like
cool.
it's because
Yeah.
of this one person who then basically that grows out to be the Jedi from
Yeah.
that. Like
Yeah.
something like I think that would be really cool. But
Yeah, so JB, there you have it. Way more than you probably wanted to hear. It was a cop out, and then it turned into like this crazy deep discussion. That's us. So anyway, JB, that's our thoughts. So we'd like to hear your thoughts. What would you like to be if you would like to be in a Star Wars film? So second question comes from Kristen Perry, and again, Kristen, this is definitely a cop out, so I apologize. But what you say, what's the history of the lightsaber, like the proto saber and the dark saber? So the 2-second or like the 10-second history, of course, is that, as you said, the proto saber was the very beginning inception of the lightsaber, and it grew from there. But the proto saber, as we used to know it in Legends, where it had the battery pack, is no longer the case. If we look back into the High Republic, we see that it's almost like the Death Star, where it has two little side things that shoot the laser up and that meets in the middle and creates the blade. So it's like, oh, we just kind of invented it and add these little side things. So that is the super short 10-second answer. And the reason I say that is because we do want to save time today, because we're already pretty long into this. But if you would like to know more about lightsabers, the history of lightsabers, I mean, basically everything you could possibly want to know about lightsabers, go to episode 51. It is called The Definitive Guide to Lightsabers, and we talk about it probably more extensively than you want to hear about it on that episode.
oh, absolutely, for sure.
So, third question comes from Rachel Pikus, who says, so we all know that Jango Fett was chosen to be cloned, and we all know why. But who do you guys think would have also made a good template for the clone troopers? And that is an excellent question. One I personally haven't thought about a lot myself, and I was trying to I was preparing for the episode today, just a couple of minutes before we started going live, and I really couldn't find a great answer because obviously Count Dooku chooses Jango as the template, and we, again, as you say, we all know why, right? Because he's a bounty hunter. He's to some degree a Mandalorian. He's a very well accomplished fighter. He knows how to knows good tactics and stuff like that. He has the body and the physical shape for it. So he was a great candidate. At this time, though, there's not a lot of characters other than the main ones, right? Like the Jedi and the Sith. Other than that, we don't have a lot of canon characters from pre and current Phantom Menace that we can draw from, like bounty hunters and things of that nature. All we really know about is Jango Fett. So there's not a great answer for that. Now, I guess the question is when we look to the clone troopers, are they just cloning his body type because he's just really good? Or is it also cloning like his aptitude for making good decisions and his like his mentality? Are those being copied as well? Because that would change my answer. Because here's the thing, if it's just a physical thing, of course, then you can go out and you could choose a beautiful physical specimen out there, right? Some kind of, Greek god-like person who, you can always find somebody like that. But, of course, we have the entire race of the Mandalorians. I think you could choose any of the top Mandalorians of the time, and they would be good templates. Secondarily, or I guess not secondarily, but further than that, if they're using aptitude, if they can copy the mentality, I do think it would also be good to maybe find somebody from the Jedi, find somebody from any group that has a lot of good fighters, and then pick them, because then you could modify the body to how you want through the cloning process, but then have the peak mentality, mental acuteness, all these different things. So it's not really a great direct answer, but Drew, before I continue talking, take it from here.
Well, yeah, I think they chose Jango because he was considered to be the best bounty hunter at the time, right? Like he was the best, and so I personally believe that like when they cloned his genetics, and part of that was a natural ability to become an efficient warrior, right? Like, I mean, clearly he was highly trained, and so they would know by using him, they should be able to highly train these soldiers.
Right.
Now, as far as like, who else could they use? I mean, yeah, my mind immediately goes to, well, a Jedi or a Sith. The issue there, as we know, because of Rise of Skywalker, is cloning someone with Force, or at least for them to then still have the Force,
doesn't work very well. Yeah.
And so that's a struggle Palpatine has. Trying to get that to work properly is a very big struggle for him. So that kind of defeats the purpose, I guess, of using a Jedi or a Sith, and maybe they already knew that by that point. I don't know. But still, a Jedi using one of the Jedi could have still probably been a fairly decent choice, right?
Right.
Even if their clones don't have the Force.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think you can't go wrong with who they chose. When you think about who could have been used during that time, I think they already picked pretty much the best guy for the job based on the characters we know during that time. But I think, if they were to go an alternate route, it would have been interesting to see them clone a Jedi, or even like maybe if Darth Tyrannus was like, or Count Dooku, whatever you want to call him, was like, clone me.
Yeah,
exactly. Like that would have been an interesting
turn
turn of events there, right? And just to see like how that.
But I think that's another part too, is they couldn't pick anybody too obvious because they're clones. They look exactly alike,
right? And
that would be a big tip off.
Very
to
true.
anyone that would see them, right?
True.
So,
And you have to assume Django never showed his face.
right. Well, and that's the thing, right? If he truly was a foundling and followed those codes, is like, he probably didn't take his helmet off all that much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Well, then again,
Well, he wasn't being raised by the Death
He
Watch.
did show his face to Kenobi, so he wasn't too concerned.
Right, I'm saying, yeah, and I kind of recant that statement because I realize now that the reason Mando doesn't do it was because he was raised by the Death Watch, who was trying to go to the ancient ways.
Right, but
So-
still, you would think he wouldn't want.
like as a bounty hunter, just in general.
you would just think in general, like he wouldn't, but maybe he didn't care about that. I don't know.
Okay, we're getting really off the rails here. We're getting way off the rails. This is not even any part of the question. Long story short, Rachel, that is a great question and really one that we don't have a full answer to because in current canon, there's not a lot of characters that we know of other than main prominent characters, and they couldn't pick a main prominent character because that'd be a tip-off of who the clones are and their purpose. So that is the kind of very extensive kind of cop-out answer, so hopefully that answers it to some degree. All right, so our fourth and final question comes from ye old Brandon Dukes. Good to hear from you, man. Who says, if you guys could be a part of one battle in the Star Wars universe, which one would it be and what vehicle would you choose, if applicable? So I do have a specific thought, but I've been talking first the most time. So Drew, what battle do you think that you would like to be a part of? And if applicable, what vehicle would you use?
So I think I would choose the Battle of Geonosis.
Ooh, I didn't pick that one, but that was literally my close second choice. Very interesting.
And honestly, the reason why is because it's the only time we see a ton of Jedi like just fighting all together.
Right.
It's the only example we have of that. Which I think is a tragedy, by the way. I think we should
100%,
totally have more
100%.
examples of tons of Jedi fighting. But yeah, like that's the only time we get that, like almost in a sense medieval type war
Right.
scene with
Yeah.
Jedi, right?
Mhm.
And so that is absolutely my top pick. I would love to be a Jedi in the midst of all that fighting.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It'd be cool.
Yeah.
But I do want to throw out a second one, which would be Jakku.
Okay.
Um,
yeah.
And the reason I say that is because it's known to be one of the biggest battles, and there's so much going on in that battle. So many different people there, and doing it would be quite the experience to see it happening in
Sure.
in
Yeah.
real life, right?
Much greater chance of dying, though.
Yeah, and
we're basing all of our answers off the precipice that we live,
right, yeah.
or precedents. Excuse me, precedents.
But yeah, I think that would be a very neat one, and in that scenario, I would totally, of course, use an X-wing. So
Yeah. Well, so our answers are actually pretty similar on certain halves here. So literally, I kid you not, and I think up to this point, you guys have just come to expect that Andrew and I have like very similar answers every time. I literally was going to pick Battle of Geonosis for that same exact reason. I bet Andrew would probably say something like that. I'm like, I'll go with something different. But I did have a very other close one that I really love, and of course, it is the classic Battle of Yavin. And I want to say that is because, what is the core of Star Wars? And we talked about this in the past. The core message of Star Wars is hope, right? That, even in the darkest of darkness, there's always hope. And the Battle of Yavin was, one of the first definitive battles, or not battles. It was one of the first definitive victories against the Empire.
yeah.
And I think, yes, there's a lot of, we had 2 more movies after the Battle of Yavin, right? We had 2 other movies that had to take place and for ultimately the Empire to be defeated totally. But again, up to this point for many, many decades, we've had tyrannical rule over the entire galaxy, and the Empire has just put their thumb on everybody. We've even had people like Vader come in and just kill everybody, depending on circumstances. Point is that there was no hope at that point. But the Battle of Yavin was the first time that there was this actual victory against the Empire that showed, hey, they can actually be defeated. And it's just so symbolic. I think that's one of the main reasons. And it was so victorious, and it was celebrated across the entire galaxy, as we see in many different parts of the lore. I just think that would, of course, be it. And again, this is why I say other part of our answer is pretty similar. Of course, you got to have the X-Wing, baby. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You got to be in an X-Wing.
Gotta be in the
come
X-Wing.
on. So I could go on. I have so many more I could say, but for the sake of time, let us move forward.
Sake of your sanity.
Yeah. Now, you know, they're like absolutely wearing their thumb out, hitting like the plus 15, you know, like skip.
Well, let's be real. No one's listening
No
still.
one's listening to this.
Everybody's gone.
Yeah, so
It's just you and me and our voices echoing into the deep abyss.
Star Wars. All right, so let's move on. To our final segment here today.
Yeah, so we're going to be jumping in to our Bad Batch episode review. I have no idea what the episode was called. Do you remember?
The first one, or so episode 6, and I think we could go over episode 6 just very, very quickly.
I have nothing to say about that episode.
Well, I was just going to tell what happened.
That's fine. You can say, if you have something to say about that episode, go for it. I have nothing to say about that episode.
You know, honestly, I really don't have anything other to say than negative things, so actually I probably will move on, because I don't want to say anything negative inherently just because of the fact. Episode 6, though, was decommissioned. That was the name of it, and it was just a filler episode, honestly. It introduced the Martez sisters again, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but they're using it to drive the story, so hey, there you go. But episode 7, which is this week, is called Battle Scars.
Okay, Battle Scars.
So
yeah.
Let us discuss our non-spoiler thoughts first. So, Drew, go ahead.
Finally, things are looking up.
Yeah.
This is a good episode.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Real quick, I forgot on our Q&A, Alex had made a couple comments. It wasn't really questions, but he just wanted to talk. But he says, so will something actually happen? This is before he watched episode 7. So will something actually happen before episode 16? I understand filler episodes, but if this next one is another filler, I might fall asleep. 5 filler episodes in a row? Rant over.
Well, it sounds like Alex will be staying awake for this episode,
yes,
because this was a decent episode.
Yeah, yeah.
A couple things I noticed right off the bat was the music in this one is interesting.
So say that, yeah.
It really stood out to me. The tone was a little more
serious, maybe
a little more serious, and I was able to accept it a little more. There's still some stuff that really just gets to me, and we'll get to that a little bit. There's some things that really still just bother me about this show. But overall, the story progressed. We got some interesting characters that it was great to see. So overall, like things were looking pretty good with this.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's going to be a matter of, can we continue on this? Can we continue to go up from here? Are we going to go back down and wait another 3 episodes before something cool happens again?
Essentially that's my exact thoughts. I mean, Drew and I watched together, so we kind of was slightly discussing, so we already know what we're going to say. But yeah, I mean, and that's the first thing I noticed is that, man, this has a definite, like, different feel. It was maybe not even darker necessarily, but it was more serious. And one thing I'd say, it's more like cinematic than in the previous episodes. Maybe other than episode 1, Aftermath. But the point is that it felt different. The music was different in a good way. It was actually very different from just Star Wars in general. But again, in a good way. It felt organic, almost like raw, real. It felt good. Don't get me wrong, I love the Star Wars soundtrack, but you see what I'm saying. This really pervaded the emotions. It actually, again, it wasn't just some silly filler episode where the kid saves the day again on something that literally means nothing. This actually, there's like emotions in this episode. There was more, there's lore being built, characters developed, and that was a very good change of pace. So overall, I do think it was a great episode. I mean, could there have been better things? Sure. But especially from what we've seen the past 5 episodes, it's been very good. And here's the redemption arc. Alex comments, finally, not a filler.
Oh, okay.
So the redemption arc comes back. So that's it for my thoughts on non-spoilers.
Let's just jump right into spoilers. Going right into it, we see a shipyard right, full of destroyed Republic ships. This is on Braca, which is actually the planet and junkyard, essentially, of what we see from Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah.
So
well,
that's
we do
cool,
we
right?
do see something before that that's pretty significant, though, right? Before we
do?
get to that planet, we're in the cantina, right, and they're turning in their bounties, and of course we get to see Captain Rex. And that character, of course, is reintroduced into the show. We knew that he was coming back, but it was still very good to see him again. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the kind of the,
forgot that it showed Rex before that.
yeah, and that's the kind of the catalyst as to why they have to go to that planet is because he gets really kind of wary and is like, oh, man, you still have your chips? You know, you're about to turn any moment, basically.
Okay, I was messing.
Oh,
that
come
up.
on, dude. That's why I write notes.
Yeah, so they went there because he knew they could try to extract the
Right.
chips.
That there was
from
these
them.
med bays on
Yeah.
the Jedi cruisers that they could try to access.
Right. So first of all, yeah, great to see Rex in this.
Mm-hmm.
As you and I assumed, we would see Rex.
Yeah,
Like that was
naturally,
a given.
naturally, yeah.
I'm glad that it's earlier than later. I'm glad
Yeah.
that because I think that we'll most likely see him more in this
Mm-hmm.
season. I don't think this is the only time. They also definitely teased at Ahsoka. He's talking
Yeah.
to someone on the comm link later in the episode.
I mean, come on.
and
Who's that going to be?
It's got to be
You know?
Ahsoka, right?
Who's that going to be?
And clearly, you know, if he's in contact with the sisters, I can't.
Rafa and
whatever.
well, the Martez sisters, but it's
yeah.
Rafa and Trace.
Then clearly, you know, he knows them because of Ahsoka. So yeah, the whole deal there. Like Ahsoka's
Yeah.
going to be in this too. I really do think so.
Yeah, no,
eventually.
100%. And basically, well, one thing I wanted to point out, there was again some cool callbacks. This planet, is it called Braca? Is that what you said?
Braca. I think.
Braca. Anyway, planet is definitely callback is kind of a weird word to say, right? But it was definitely a reference to what we see in Jedi Fallen Order, as Drew has already mentioned. That was really cool. Now, this is something I caught, and I might just be, you know, extrapolating or trying to pull hairs here. But as we see is they're walking through the junkyard, the shipyard, and Hunter tells Tech, hey, don't get too close to the water. And then of course later on we see Wrecker get entangled by this crazy tentacle looking monster. But what's interesting is that we do see in episode 4, A New Hope, of the actual saga, that when they're in the trash compactor, that those tentacles come up, and basically that lore is that basically whenever all this junk from across the galaxy comes into a certain place, that there's these little eggs that hatch from these crazy tentacle monsters, and then they always grow in a scrapyard or a junkyard where there's deep water. And so anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. It was kind of just a neat little callback to New Hope and that little piece of lore. But hey, little things.
Also, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but the like scrap yard guild or whatever you want to call the people that were there on the little like floater things totally looks like Darth Revan's mask.
It does.
Has a lot of similarities, and I don't know if that was just a fun callback or completely coincidental, but I just want to mention that as well.
That is a good point.
But so anyways, they go into the one of the Old Republic ships. They get to the medic bay there, and they start to try to get this chip out of Wrecker because he's having all those headaches.
And let's clarify, when we say Old Republic ship, I mean the Republic that had just recently fallen. Because Republic.
Right.
Anyway, just to clarify, anybody out there might be confused.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And of course, like as they're starting to work on this, he actually turns right then and there. Like that's when it happens.
Yeah.
And it has this really cool moment.
Yes.
Where you can see the turn, and then like it goes like silent. Right?
Yeah, all the music, sound effects, everything.
And then he grabs
Tech by the
throat, and I'm like, this is cool. And then immediately goes,
I'm gonna have you're in direct violation of Order 66.
So I'm like, it's like over here, like, dude, it's like Kermit with laryngitis. Like, bro, come on, you really
completely ruined it for me.
Ruined the moment.
It was such a cool moment until he spoke. It's like, and it's because Wrecker has this very
it's a very whimsical voice that was meant to be kind of funny because he's the big tough guy.
Right, but it's like in that moment, it messed it up for me big time. It's like,
yeah,
it's like that was so cool, and then it just
man.
immediately destroyed it for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then they have their fight. And eventually, of course, they get them back, and
then subsequently everybody gets their chips taken
they all
out,
get the
you know?
chips taken.
Yeah.
So no more wondering if they're actually going to go bad. There'd been a lot of rumors about things like that, and I even kind of wondered before, like, do they eventually get changed? You know, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It doesn't appear that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
It looks like now they're free from it.
This is
so.
a slightly small thing, just a little gripe. I probably shouldn't even mention it, but you know, at the very beginning of the episode, like Rex is like, you know, what the heck, you know, you don't have your chips taken out, seriously? And the Tech, who's supposed to be the genius, is like, oh well, because of our divergence or whatever, you know, we're not going to turn. It's like he's like, but then he goes, well, except for crosshairs. I'm like, okay, so that shows you that your divergence can be overcome.
Oh, and also, Wrecker has horrible headaches.
Oh, and by the way, this dude's taking like 16 med packs because he has headaches, and you're wondering what's going on. I'm like, yeah, come on, you goof. Like, this dude's supposed to be the genius of the group. And again, it kind of harkens to some of the dumb things that made me mad in the previous 5 filler episodes, is that we have these people who are literally the best of the best in their area, and then because of the sake of the kids show, they're destabilizing those characters. He's a genius, but he's stupid. Hunter is a perfect tactician and warrior, but he gets captured and a kid has to come save him. You know, just dumb little stuff like that. But point is, though, is while there still was some of those little roots of dumb little kids show stuff in this, overall, this was a really good episode. It had a great feel to it, great music, good direction of writing, and just the way they took the things. It was great. Yeah.
Give me more episodes like that.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed this episode. It kept my
Absolutely.
attention. Sure, there's still some frustrating little things in there here and there, but like overall, this was great. Let's stay on this track.
Yep.
Let's continue to raise the stakes. Let's continue to bring in characters that are interesting and that call back to things. And yeah, I love stuff like that. I love having a character that we do really care about in this episode. Rex being back, of course we care about Rex, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And let's see more of that. And let's not go back. If this next episode goes back to being another filler adventure, fun little filler adventure, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. We actually said the same exact thing for Mandalorian Season 2, if you remember. The first episode was fantastic. Amazing. The next 3 or 4 episodes, or whatever it was, 2 or 3 episodes, 3 or 4, whatever it was, were stupid and filler. I mean, it was still fun to watch because it was Star Wars and it was Mando, right? But it was clearly filler. And it had nothing to do with the lore. And then it hit that halfway point. Because remember, we said if it doesn't hit that halfway point and really hit it with Dave Filoni, blah, blah. So it did. And then subsequently after that, almost every episode was good. So I'm hoping that because Dave Filoni's over this, we're following that same kind of style.
Also, though, with The Mandalorian, and what I appreciate about The Mandalorian is what you think is filler ends up being more important than what you realize.
Sure. Yeah.
And I guess the Bad Batch could be doing that, but I don't really see how they could be doing too much of that with what we've gotten so far.
Yeah. Exactly.
Basically, every episode, the carrying plot point that's really kind of progressed these episodes has been Wrecker's headaches and just waiting for Wrecker to turn. Well, now we've gotten that.
So what's the driving point now?
So what is it now? Is it like leading back to Crosshair?
Perhaps,
I mean, we know eventually we're getting the showdown with Crosshair, and the big question is going to be: does Crosshair turn back, or are they going to have to like kill Crosshair? Right? Like that's
do they systematically take each other out because of that, or whatever?
What's that showdown lead to? That's the big question here. Now, is that what I want this show's big question to be?
Not really.
No, not really.
Yeah.
I wanted this to be more about how they deal with the Empire, right? Like how they deal with the transitioning of the Empire. But honestly, the show's not dealt with that much.
It's touched on like the first episode and then slightly the second episode and then out of here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been kind of just away from that. I want to see. Now, we know we get more of it. We know there's an episode at some point we saw in one of the initial trailers. They're standing in the midst of all these clones, like tons and tons of clones, or what you could call the beginning of stormtroopers, whatever you want to call, and they're standing there like they're a part of it.
Yeah, actually, I don't remember that. but-
Yeah, it's in one of the trailers.
Well, actually, I intentionally didn't
And-
watch some of the last trailers just because I didn't want to get spoiled anything. So
Yeah, I don't even think this was one of the last ones. I think it was one of the first ones. But
interesting.
anyway, so we know that somewhere along the way we're going to get more of that. But like, I want to see more involvement of the Empire in those things more so than just them off on random adventures. Like,
Yeah.
why? You know.
I completely agree.
And of course,
I
the other
completely
big
agree.
question I guess that I'm leaving out is Omega. Like, there's
Right.
more to Omega than meets the eye.
More than meets the eye.
And I want to start seeing something from that.
Right.
And let's find out the significance and importance of this character.
Yeah.
Don't wait till the very last episode to tell us
And
why
then
she's
like
important.
finally here's this reveal, and then you're just kind of like, okay,
I think
what
it would.
now?
I think
You
it would
know?
be more interesting if we learn more about why she's important, and then make us care about that,
Exactly.
and carry through these
Exactly.
episodes, and then so
Sometimes ripping off the Band-Aid is not always the solution that you need to do.
exactly. So anyway, I think that's all my thoughts. I enjoyed it. I think we are on the right track here. Let's keep it going.
100%. So we could beat on the bush all day here, but we're going to continue to move on, and we're going to conclude our episode for today. We just want to thank everybody so much for the continued support towards our podcast. Or listening to the podcast, watching our videos. Sheesh, I mean, everything you guys do, liking and commenting and sharing our posts. As of recently, we started our fundraiser, and many of you have donated. And here we are. We're able to buy a camera in the next week or two. We're going to try to get some awesome videos out there. But we thank you for all you guys do. Thank you for continued support in this community, and we look forward to hearing from each of you. Please like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube, Instagram for news, polls, discussions, memes, and everything in between. We also ask that you would follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, which is our main places we post. And if you could, we'd love to have a good review and give us a 5-star, because that actually does help us more than you'd think when we try to get sponsors or anything in the future, or trying to get our book deals and things of that nature. It actually does help.
It does help. We would love for you guys to take just a couple minutes, give us a good review. It does make a difference for us.
Absolutely. But we thank you for listening, and we pray that you would join us next week for episode 60. Holy camole, dude. 60, that's pretty crazy. But last but not least, may the Force be with you, and we thank you for joining the Jedi Journey.